Hello, everyone. I'm Sharon, and today I want to share a deeply personal chapter from my life. It involves some significant challenges I faced with my in-laws and my husband while navigating a divorce. I hope my story will resonate with those of you who have experienced undue criticism from your in-laws. Let's rewind to where it all began. I first met Charles, my now estranged husband, when I was 19 years old and a college student. Charles was 25, worked, and was quite stable. Despite the age gap between us, we fell in love. I've always believed that love isn't confined by age or appearance, so Charles's being older never bothered me. However, Charles had his reservations about our age difference. He often asked, "Why are you with me, Sharon? You could find someone your age who might be a better match." But I chose Charles because I loved him, and to me, age was just a number. Charles's insecurities ran deep. He frequently questioned my motives, saying, "There must be another reason, Sharon. It's not typical for someone like you to be with someone like me. I wish you'd just tell me the real reason." Despite my repeated reassurances that my feelings were genuine and that I wasn't interested in dating someone my age, Charles's self-doubt remained. His insecurities hinted at deeper self-esteem issues that seemed to have kept him single before we met. Determined to prove my sincere affection, I made sure Charles never had to spend excessively on me. As a college student managing my finances, I wasn't wealthy, but I always tried to buy him thoughtful gifts and handle my expenses. I worked part-time jobs to ensure I wasn't financially dependent on him. Charles seemed to appreciate these efforts, but unfortunately, his insecurities didn't fade. He continued to question the sincerity of my love, which hurt me deeply. It took 3 years before I truly understood the roots of Charles's issues. When I met his parents, Ronald and Lorraine, I got a glimpse into the environment that had shaped Charles's perspectives and insecurities. Ronald, Charles's father, had a dramatic turn of fortune when he won the lottery, which drastically changed their lives. This newfound wealth gave me insight into the attitudes and perspectives that influenced Charles. After winning the lottery, Ronald and Lorraine bought a luxurious house and wisely invested the rest of their winnings. However, their newfound wealth seemed to come with a sense of superiority. During our first meeting, Ronald often bragged, saying, "Not everyone gets lucky like me. I was just a hard worker, and look where it got me." Do you realize how rare it is to win big in a lottery? Yet, I managed it on my first try. They were very proud of their decision-making skills and often implied that despite his college education, Charles would never reach their level of financial success. Lorraine frequently suggested that Charles's previous partners were only interested in his money and left him once they were financially better off. They openly doubted Charles's ability to make good decisions, which infuriated me. It felt like Charles's parents were painting every woman he dated as a gold digger. Over time, Charles began to believe this narrative himself. The insinuation that I was just another gold digger became an embarrassing and hurtful part of their story. Fed up with their baseless assumptions, I decided to stand up for both Charles and myself. I said, "I'm sorry, but I have to disagree with you. Charles has worked hard to build his career, and in time, he will achieve even greater success." But Ronald responded, "Well, that doesn't change the fact that women only want him for his money. The money we have is ours, but Charles does co-own the house. Eventually, it will be his. Every time these girls see our $300,000 house." I was beyond frustrated with their constant insinuations. I couldn't hold back any longer. I told them, "I can't speak for Charles's past relationships, but I'm certainly not here for the money. I love your son, and that's why we're together. I have no interest in your house." Lorraine responded coolly, "Don't worry, Sharon. Sometimes it's hard to accept that people can be successful and live in nice houses. You live in a small rented apartment with roommates. You might start desiring it after spending time around our house." Their comments tested my patience, and I was on the verge of losing my temper. Charles heard everything but chose not to respond or defend himself. Instead, he just changed the subject, which left me feeling even more frustrated. On the drive home, I was taken aback by his indifferent attitude. After that particularly tense visit with his parents, I decided it was crucial to address the issue directly with Charles. Charles, your parents are being unfair and hurtful toward both of us. Why didn't you stand up for me? I asked. Charles sighed, his frustration evident. What did you expect me to say, Sharon? My past isn't exactly encouraging. I've been used before by people who were only interested in my parents' wealth, making plans for when they would inherit the house. Even if they were wrong about those women, it doesn't mean they're wrong about everything. His words stung. Even if those women were after your money, that doesn't mean I am. It hurts that you stayed silent while your family insulted me. Charles looked conflicted. You know my family is wealthy now, and maybe they have a point. I'm not accusing you of having bad intentions, but I can see why it might look questionable to others. You don't have parents, and because of that, you might seem more reliant on my inheritance. What he was suggesting was almost too much to bear. What you're suggesting is absurd, Charles. I've never pressured you to spend on me. Not having an inheritance doesn't make me a gold digger. Charles remained stubborn, unwilling to see things from my perspective. I love you, and that's what matters. Let's not argue about this anymore, he said, dismissing the need for further discussion. While some might have found comfort in his declaration of love, I couldn't shake the feeling that he still had doubts about my intentions. I tried repeatedly to discuss it, even suggesting therapy to help him see things more clearly, but he refused, insisting that there was nothing wrong. As time went on, I started distancing myself from his family. We got engaged right after I graduated from college, and I landed a decent job which allowed me to start saving for our wedding. We shared the wedding expenses equally and married when I was 21. However, the next 4 years of our marriage were rocky. Charles frequently visited his parents, each time returning more distant and upset. I knew Ronald and Lorraine continued to poison his mind, branding me as a gold digger despite my pleas for him to reduce contact with them. Charles kept seeing his parents often, and their negative influence began to deeply affect his view of our relationship, convincing him that no one could truly love him for who he was. Even after years of my unwavering love, Charles's suspicion towards me never seemed to ease, and the constant need to prove my sincerity became increasingly exhausting. The moment that truly tested us came on Charles's birthday. We decided on a low-key celebration, having a small cake party at our home. I was excited to make his day special, so I surprised him with an expensive watch he had long admired. Charles was thrilled with the gift, but my heart sank when he suggested we show it off to his parents. Despite my hesitation, I went along with him. When we arrived at his parents' house, Charles couldn't wait to show off his new watch. Mom, Dad, look at this beautiful watch Sharon got me. I've wanted it for so long. Isn't it stunning? His enthusiasm was palpable. Lorraine responded with a hint of surprise. Oh, Charles, it seems she does love you after all. We were quite worried for some time. But Ronald quickly added, don't be fooled, old Lorraine. I couldn't hold back any longer. I felt my frustration bubbling up. Excuse me? Why did you think I married your son just for your house? I've been working and living in an apartment for years, and if age was a concern, why would I marry someone older unless I truly loved him? I assure you, I didn't marry Charles for his money or your house. I married him because I love him. Surely, Charles can confirm that, right? To my shock, Charles stayed silent. His refusal to defend me in front of his accusing parents was deeply unsettling. I felt increasingly isolated as he avoided making eye contact, sinking under their harsh assumptions. Pushed to my limit, I confronted him. Charles, why aren't you saying anything? Your parents have always labeled me a gold digger. How will they ever see the real me if you don't speak up? Why are you so quiet? Tell them they're wrong. Charles's hesitation was palpable. He muttered, I don't know what you want me to say, Sharon. Maybe my parents aren't completely wrong. There might be a possibility. His words trailed off, but the implication was clear. This doubt, this inability to stand by me, was more than just a simple misunderstanding. It was a fundamental crack in the foundation of our relationship, casting a shadow over our love and my place in his life. The birthday celebration, which was supposed to be special, quickly turned sour. I was stunned by the accusations being thrown at me. Are you serious right now, Charles? You believe I married you for your assets? His parents chimed in, their suspicion clear. Oddly, you've never thought about buying a house. Isn't owning a home a priority for someone renting? You haven't even talked about it with him. Our place is out of your price range. You could never afford something like this on your own, so marrying Charles and settling here seems more logical. Charles looked at me with a mix of doubt and confusion. Yeah, Sharon, why would you marry me? You might have feelings for me, but I think there's more to it than just love. Their words left me speechless. All the love and affection I had felt for Charles seemed to evaporate in an instant. Both my in-laws and my husband saw me as nothing more than a gold digger. While the skepticism from his parents was hurtful, it was Charles's agreement that cut the deepest. At that moment, I resolved to end our marriage. I didn't reveal my decision right away. Instead, I waited for the right moment. Once Charles and I were back home, I contacted a lawyer and began the divorce process. The lawyer assured me that everything would be prepared within a week. In the meantime, I moved into a separate room to give myself some space. Charles thought I was just cooling off and had no idea of my intentions. When the divorce papers were ready, I gathered my belongings and left. Charles, clearly distressed, called me in a panic. I told him to meet me at a specific address and to bring his parents. Despite his confusion, he complied. When they arrived, I was waiting on the porch of a stunning house. Their expressions shifted to surprise as they took in the scene. You must be wondering why I brought you here, I said, gesturing to the luxurious surroundings. It's a beautiful house, isn't it? No one can compare their home to this one. It's worth around $3 million in today's market. Quite expensive, right? The dramatic setting was my way of showing them that their accusations and suspicions were unfounded. I was not the person they thought I was, and I needed to make that clear in the most unforgettable way. But it's worth every penny, I said, continuing to gesture towards the lavish interior of the house, which also boasted furniture worth millions. What is this place, Sharon? I don't understand how you have access to such a house, Charles asked, clearly puzzled. Why don't you all come in so we can talk properly? I suggested, brushing off their astonishment. I can't explain everything standing here on the porch. They followed me inside, their eyes widening at the opulent decor that greeted us. The owners had spared no expense in furnishing their home. As we settled into the plush sofas, I took a deep breath, ready to address the elephant in the room. I've made a decision, and that's why we're here, I began. I filed for divorce. I handed Charles the papers. We can proceed with an uncontested divorce if you agree. What? I don't understand. Why are you filing for divorce? Charles's voice was a mix of confusion and concern. It's simple, I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. You and your parents think I'm a gold digger. You believe I married you for your house and your money. Despite everything I've said, you've refused to listen, so it's better for everyone if I leave, sparing you from what you deem my gold-digging tendencies. You're considering divorce just because my parents spoke what they believed to be the truth? That's ridiculous. Charles retorted, disbelief coloring his tone. I think it's for the best, I replied firmly, my resolve unshaken. Charles's mother, watching the exchange with an unreadable expression, chimed in. If she's so adamant, you should just sign the papers, Charles. Then at least you can find someone who truly loves you, she said. Why did you bring us to this house, Sharon? Do you expect me to buy this for you as part of our divorce settlement? Charles asked, suspicion evident in his voice. Why would I need you to buy this house, Charles? I answered calmly, watching their shock and disbelief unfold. This house is already mine. They looked at me as if I were joking. How on earth can you afford a house like this? You're renting, and your job isn't enough to cover something like this. Stop lying to us. Charles's father demanded, his tone sharp with suspicion. Their disbelief was palpable, but I was ready to prove my independence and financial capability once and for all. This revelation was not just a statement of my financial independence, but also a declaration of my autonomy, forever altering the dynamics of our relationship. I'm not lying, I asserted firmly, seeing the disbelief on their faces. Charles, remember when I mentioned that my parents left me some inheritance? Well, this house is part of it. It's under a trust for now, but I will officially inherit it when I turn 31. I don't need to work a high-paying job because I have a trust fund waiting for me. That's impossible. Charles interjected. Your parents passed away a long time ago. They should have given you the house earlier. You see, my parents were aware of the potential leeches I might attract, I explained. So they instructed me never to disclose the house or the trust fund to anyone. Call it foresight, but they knew someone could try to exploit me. Hence, they placed everything in a trust to keep it safe until I reached 31. By then, I'd hopefully be settled with someone who genuinely cared about me, not my inheritance. Oh my God, Sharon, you should have told us about your wealth. We had no idea. Charles's mother exclaimed. This is a sizable house. We could all live very comfortably here. Yeah, you should have shared that sooner. We thought you were after our house. We could have avoided all the misunderstandings, Charles added, looking relieved yet somewhat embarrassed. I always knew Sharon was perfect for Charles. I've been saying she's a great woman. Look how wealthy she is. Charles found a great match. His father chimed in, his tone shifting dramatically. Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh. Their attitude toward me had changed so quickly, it made my head spin. What was even more bizarre was that they seemed to have completely forgotten about the divorce papers I had brought with me. I pulled out the papers, signed them, and said, "Here's my signature for an uncontested divorce. You can just sign these to make it easy. If you want to fight, we can take this to court, but I won't live with you anymore." Wait, Sharon, listen to me. There's no need to rush this, Charles pleaded. You've already proven you're not a gold digger. There's no reason for a divorce anymore. We even apologize for any misunderstanding. That should make things better, right? Yes, Ronald is right. We're sorry, Sharon. We doubted you for no reason, his mother added, her voice filled with regret. Despite their apologies and sudden change of heart, the clarity of their initial judgments and accusations lingered in my mind, reinforcing my decision to step away from a relationship where trust had to be proven right rather than given. I don't want your insincere apologies, I said firmly, my resolve unwavering. For 3 years, you allowed your family to berate me and label me a gold digger. I expected you to defend me, but instead, you sided with them and even accused me of the same. I can't stay with someone who doesn't respect his wife. I'm done, Charles. We can part ways amicably or involve the courts. The choice is yours. Lorraine and Ronald tried desperately to change my mind, pleading with me to overlook the past. In their eyes, what had transpired was just a minor misunderstanding. However, their lack of genuine remorse for tarnishing my reputation only fueled my anger. When I reached my breaking point, I demanded that they leave before I called the police. My firm stance intimidated them, and they left without further argument. Over the next few weeks, Charles and his parents continued to harass me. They begged, pleaded, and even offered bribes to persuade me to stay. Their belief that money could sway my decision only intensified my fury. It was a stark revelation of their persistent view of me as someone motivated by financial gain. Ironically, since Charles co-owned the house with his parents, I was entitled to half of his share, which only fueled their desperation for reconciliation. Despite their relentless attempts, I remained steadfast in my decision to part ways. I relocated all my belongings to my parents' house, asserting my right to stay there even before officially taking ownership. Charles and his parents persisted in their attempts to reach out, prompting me to change my phone number to avoid their constant calls from unfamiliar numbers. Charles even attempted to discuss matters at my workplace, but I had informed security beforehand, and they asked him to leave. Charles still hadn't signed the divorce papers, holding out hope for a change in my decision. Nearly a year had passed, and the situation remained unresolved, a testament to the complexity and emotional depth of our entangled lives. Since I initiated the divorce proceedings, with less than a year remaining until the legal process is concluded, I've managed quite well on my own. I've found both happiness and financial stability. While I've gone on a few dates, I'm not considering anything serious at the moment. According to a cousin of Charles's, his family is now worried about having to pay me my rightful share of the house. The legal fees are mounting, and their savings are proving to be insufficient. Charles is even advocating for selling the house, harboring resentment toward his parents for the upheaval they've caused in his life. At this point, I simply don't care about their dilemmas. My only goal is to be free from that toxic family and move on with my life, leaving the chaos and negativity behind.